Welcome to Lesson 4 of the Civil Rights 101 training course. The Office of Access, Inclusion, and Compliance, or OAIC, prepared these lessons to provide a basic understanding of why civil rights matter in your work. This final lesson offers a high-level overview of how civil rights laws are applied in extension. In this lesson, we will discuss some basic civil rights requirements, including public notification of rights, language access, and disability accommodation. We will also discuss the importance of collecting and maintaining documentation and ways in which that documentation is reviewed. Note that these compliance requirements are just the floor. We must go beyond compliance to fulfill Extension's commitment to expanding access and ensuring equity in programming. At the end of the lesson, we will share resources available to assist you in pursuing efforts beyond compliance.
Let's begin with Extension's obligation to notify the public of their rights. By law, we must let the public know that Extension is an equal opportunity provider that does not discriminate. We are required to prominently display the "And Justice for All" posters shown here wherever Extension work is carried out, including local Extension offices and other locations where programs are delivered. The blue version of the poster, which is on the left, is for FoodWise. The green version on the right is for all other Extension programming. The posters, which are in English and Spanish, explain that Extension is prohibited from discriminating against protected groups, as we learned about in Lesson 3. The posters also state that program information may be made available in languages other than English, and that persons with disabilities can request program information in alternate formats. Lastly, the posters explain the procedures for someone who wants to file a program discrimination complaint directly with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. If you conduct programs or activities in places other than an Extension office, be sure to bring a copy of the "And Justice for All" poster with you.
In addition to displaying the "And Justice for All" posters, we need to include non-discrimination and accommodation statements on all our program outreach materials, both printed and electronic, such as flyers, newsletters, websites, and other digital media. At a minimum, we must state that this institution is an equal opportunity provider, and we must include information on how to request language and disability accommodations. This slide includes a sample accommodation statement. Notice that the statement should include a designated contact person and their contact information.
Now we will learn about language access requirements and procedures. In previous lessons, we learned that civil rights laws require Extension to provide meaningful access to programs for individuals with limited English proficiency, or LEP. Let's look more closely at what this means. Limited English proficient refers to individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and/or who have a limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand the English language. Note that LEP persons may be competent in English for certain types of communication, for example, speaking or understanding, but still be limited English proficient for other purposes, such as reading or writing. Extension is legally obligated to provide free language support services, such as translation and interpretation, anytime they are requested by or for an LEP person.
You may be wondering, how do I go about arranging for translation or interpretation? OAIC has a dedicated team to support you with language access services. You can submit an OAIC support request form through our website to request specific interpretation or translation services. We've included the link in the More to Explore section in Canvas. Additionally, Extension has a contract with Language Line Solutions to provide distance interpreting services when there is an immediate need for an interpreter. For example, if an individual walks into an extension office and staff are not able to communicate with them. Our website has resources for using Language Line, and your area extension director can provide you with your area's PIN for accessing the service.
As with language access, extension is required to provide reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities. What do we mean by disability accommodation? Accommodations are context-specific. They vary based on what would allow a particular person with a disability to enjoy an inclusive and equitable experience. Remember, not all disabilities are physical disabilities. Accommodations could range from providing an audio version of a paper manual to arranging for a personal support person to attend an event with a youth who has an intellectual disability or mental health diagnosis. The law requires reasonable accommodations. Reasonableness is evaluated based on the timeliness of a request and whether it will fundamentally alter the programming.
At Extension, we have an access consultant who responds to requests for disability accommodations by following an interactive, confidential, and individualized process as required by law. Contact the access consultant when you receive an accommodation request or with any disability-related questions. The public can also submit requests directly to the access consultant through the online disability accommodation request form. A link is available in the More to Explore section in Canvas. A printed form is also available. Sometimes participants will make an informal accommodation request during programming. For example, a participant with chronic pain may ask if there is an extra chair for them to prop up their legs. Or you may be asked to keep the lights on during a movie clip because somebody indicated this will prevent PTSD triggers. For informal day of requests like these, provide the accommodation to the best of your ability. Lastly, it is important to have an accessibility mindset when planning programs. This means embedding accessibility considerations in your planning process, from selecting an accessible location for your event to using plain language in your materials. Planning with an accessibility mindset reduces the need for individuals to have to request accommodations.
Now we'll discuss collecting, maintaining, and reviewing documentation of civil rights efforts. Our federal funding partner, the USDA, requires that we keep documentation of our civil rights efforts. What does this include? A record of your intentional efforts to reach out to protected groups. Basically, your files should tell the story of your efforts, relationships, and strategies. Keep samples of your program materials, including flyers, brochures, and handouts, and any materials that you've had translated into other languages. These should show that you have included non-discrimination and accommodation statements. You will also want to document any language access services that were provided or disability accommodations that were made.
The USDA also requires that we collect demographic data on our program participants, including race, ethnicity, and gender. We usually attempt to collect this information when participants register or in a survey at the end of a program. The demographic information collected is a key component of the records that Extension educators put into the planning and reporting portal each month. It helps us determine our progress towards parity, both at an individual and organizational level. In turn, parity is one measurement of our success in civil rights compliance.
Civil rights compliance is a continuous improvement process. An essential element of that process is to conduct periodic reviews to see how we're doing. As mentioned, the USDA uses parity as a key metric of our success. Parity is achieved when our program participants reflect the diversity of our target communities. Educators and counties should routinely evaluate progress towards parity. Based on that evaluation, it is important to develop and implement a plan for improvement as needed. Each county's civil rights action plan should document specific efforts intended to reach out to protected groups. Action plans should be reviewed periodically with updates by individual educators and the county team, reflecting progress to date and notes on strategies. OAIC conducts county-based reviews every 4 years on a rotating schedule. These reviews involve looking at each county's civil rights documentation, a county presentation on efforts to reach protected audiences, and a conversation about additional strategies for providing equitable programming. This is one way of internally monitoring Extension's civil rights compliance, both to ensure civil rights laws are met and that Extension is prepared for external compliance reviews by USDA.
To end this lesson, we will highlight resources available to assist you with civil rights compliance. On the slide, we've listed a variety of resources available on OAIC's website. You can use our OAIC support form to request specific services like translation or to set up a general meeting with our team on any topic related to access, inclusion, and compliance. The website also has many resources related to language access, disability, civil rights, and inclusive programming. Links to these resources are included in the More to Explore section in Canvas. OAIC also publishes a newsletter called Expanding Access Quarterly, which highlights colleagues and programs around the state that promote equitable programming. Lastly, you can also reach out to OAIC's compliance coordinator and equity strategist with any civil rights compliance questions or training requests.
Now let's review. In this lesson, we reviewed specific ways that civil rights laws are applied in Extension. By providing public notification of rights, using posters and non-discrimination and accommodation statements. By providing language access through translation and interpretation. By providing disability accommodations and using an accessibility mindset in planning our programs. And documenting our civil rights efforts and reviewing our progress toward parity. We also hope that you will take advantage of all the resources OAIC has to offer. We want to help you be successful in reaching our shared goal of providing equitable programming at Extension.